So just a rather shocking report that's made me pretty angry. So I want to respond to it. I want to cover some of the wider issues. I'll put a link to the report, but I'll warn you the image is a bit distressing. So I'll read this out because it's not too long. Saudi Arabia employer pours boiling water on Filipino woman. The 23-year-old woman was left with severe burns on her back and legs. A Filipino woman was left with severe burns after her Saudi Arabia employer allegedly poured boiling water on her. The 23-year-old household service worker from Phuket, North Cotabato, suffered burns to her back and legs after being doused with the scorching liquid in the incident in Riyadh on the 4th of May, ABS-CBN News reported. Photos of Fatma, which is not her real name, were posted by her cousin on Facebook on Saturday in an appeal for help. According to ABS-CBN News, the mother of Fatma's employer became angry after Fatma was slow to bring her coffee and then poured boiling water on her. Fatma was not taken to hospital for several hours, but when there she was able to contact relatives in the area by giving a phone number to one of the nurses. She was saved by her cousin during a further trip to the hospital. Fatma has now been taken under the wing of the Philippine Embassy. A representative from the Department of Social Welfare and Development said they are providing her with medical treatment and other necessities. According to a study by the Committee on Filipinos Overseas, 70% of Filipino domestic workers in Saudi Arabia have reported physical and psychological abuse. Tales of mistreatment are common, and not just among Filipinos. Last year, a young maid from Sri Lanka was beheaded in the country after being accused of killing her employer's 4-month-old baby. And Indonesia banned its nationals from working in Saudi Arabia when a maid was beheaded after confessing to killing her employer, claiming he abused her. So a few things to pick up on there. Firstly, the Department for Social Welfare and Development, it didn't say whether that was the Filipinos or the Saudis who are dealing with this, but it's in Saudi Arabia, so I imagine that's the Saudis. This is truly sickening stuff. I mean, to me this is the definition of pure evil. How someone could do that to another human being. It shows several things. Number one, women are just as capable of brutality as men are. This was a woman who is accused of doing this. And secondly, there's, well, the main focus here is that the way South Asian workers are treated in Saudi Arabia is nothing short of barbaric. I'm not saying necessarily by the state, but by wealthy, arrogant scumbags in Saudi society who think that these people are less than human, who think that they can treat them this way. I hope the woman responsible is arrested and jailed for a very, very long time, because this is just disgusting. And without knowing everything, I would speculate that this is from a mentality that it sounds like a really class, or for want of a better term, a real extreme snobbery, that sort of entitlement mentality that because this woman was a worker then she should be effectively a slave. That's what it sounds like. There's similar reports, not just of Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states, of workers, construction workers from India and Bangladesh being abused on the construction sites. So, you know, we see these gleaming skyscrapers, but this is the ugly side of the Gulf states. Saudi Arabia is one of the worst. The last video I made about human rights in Saudi Arabia, I got attacked by a lot of Saudi nationalists, but a few things before I am attacked. Firstly, I'm not saying every Saudi behaves like this. I'm not demonizing every Saudi person and saying this is the behavior of every Saudi, but the facts speak volumes. 70% of Filipino workers have reported some sort of abuse. That's just a fact, 70%. So clearly there is a big problem going on here. So of course I'm not saying every Saudi employer behaves this way, but clearly there's a huge problem, and I would call on the Saudi authorities as a human being, crack down on this. Crack down on this sort of abuse, because it's giving your country an appalling image, which has already got a pretty bad human rights image. Unfortunately, the Philippines is a developing country that does rely on its overseas workers, so it's difficult for them to take the same approach as Indonesia and pull its workers out, but it's sickening. And these are vulnerable people. This was a vulnerable young woman who, I just feel sickened, basically. I'm not saying it's only in Saudi Arabia. I mean, this happens all over the world, but I've heard of similar cases in Hong Kong, although it is a fact that the Gulf states do have a serious problem with this. It happens everywhere, but in other countries I think it's taken more serious, or at least dealt with in a more... Clearly the Saudi authorities are not doing enough to protect overseas workers, because there's clearly no deterrence. If there was, then this woman wouldn't have poured boiling water over her worker. She probably would have yelled at her or something, but that to me indicates that she thought she would get away with it. And the report doesn't say anything about any arrests being made. So I'll do a bit more research and find out if there has been arrests made, but for now I'm just talking about the case itself, and it's disgusting. And in my line of thinking, only an evil person could do something like that. I don't believe you can rationalise it any other way. To do that to another human being because they brought you coffee too slowly is... I can't even begin to register that sort of thinking. So I hope this woman is punished severely in order to send out a strong message that this isn't going to be tolerated. And by punished severely, I'm talking about years behind bars. I'm talking about any other Saudi punishments, like stoning or anything like that. But she should be given a very long prison sentence as a deterrent to other employers who think they could behave this way. And the Saudi government should pledge a lot more protection for overseas workers. It's just pure evil.